So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Type a 1 in the chat if you are so excited to learn how to monetize your show. Type a 1 in the chat if you are so excited to start a podcast after these few days. You're like, what have I been waiting for? This is it. I'm doing it. Awesome. We're so excited. All right. So here we go. Let's dive into what are the 8 ways you can monetize your show. The first thing we're going to talk about is advertising. And it's interesting because people think that that is the way, and that's actually just where the beginning of this all starts. It really can grow exponentially from there. But let's just discuss advertising for podcasts so you have some sense about it and you understand it and you know the model. So has anyone heard of a CPM? A CPM is a cost per thousandth. And what that means in podcasting is important because the way you get paid by a sponsor is per thousand. So typically, and this is just typically, the way advertisers work is for every 1,000 downloads you have, there's a CPM. And the CPM could be $25 per thousand, $50 per thousand. That's sort of the range, okay? And so you can do the math and you could figure out that if in a 2-month period, you had a cumulative download for the episode of 10,000 or 20,000, or I told you our show is somewhere near 1 million downloads a month. You can do the CPM, cost per thousand CPM, and it starts to get interesting, the amount of money that you can make. However, there are many faster and simpler ways to monetize before you have an audience where you even have 1,000 downloads. And that really is what makes the most money, even when you have thousands and thousands of downloads. The majority of the money you're going to make is going to come from the other 7 things that we are going to teach you. And that is what's so exciting for anyone who wants to utilize your podcast as a way of growing an empire. So any questions that you have around advertising so far, if you want to put them in the chat, we're happy to look at it. But it is important for us to understand that this is just sort of a golden standard. We're talking a general rule. If you have, let's say, 59 downloads to your podcast, you could still get a sponsor. Well, how does that work? Let's zoom out and talk about it. Have you ever been, like this coming week, next Monday night, I'm going to a gala, I'm going to a banquet. What do you think is going to happen when I pick up the booklet and turn to the back of the last 5-6 pages? There's going to be advertising in there. People will have paid to go and have a quarter page, a half page inside the banquet gala booklet, correct? Yes. So when you have anything, if you have a yearbook, if you have a piece of content, if you have a blog, if you have an Instagram, there are people, depending on who you speak to, who your audience is, they might like to show up there. So if I do go to that gala, it's going to be in LA and it's around a certain cause. And they might have an idea of who shows up and they might think the people are local, which they'd be correct. So maybe a local mechanic shop would actually advertise there. Maybe a woman who teaches piano lessons would actually think it was smart to advertise there. So do you need to think of this as the big one and only option is I need to have a corporate national brand sponsor me and I need to look at like thousands at a time downloads? Well, that's one way to do it. And another way to do it is to say, I live in Buffalo, New York. I have 111 listeners. A lot of those people seem to be an extension of my friends and family network who live in Buffalo, New York. So I'm going to reach out to the local hardware store because I go there all the time because I have a passion for woodworking, or I'm going to reach out to the local yoga studio and say, would you like to sponsor my podcast? And you can figure out what feels like it makes sense to you. Maybe you ask them for a flat fee of $150, or maybe you ask them for $1,000, or maybe you do a bigger partnership with this brand and say, I'm going to run 6 ads for you, where I'm going to do a 1-minute mention that sounds personalized in my show. And I'm also going to do a live event at your hardware store where we will podcast from the back of the hardware store. And then at the end, everybody can shop and get 10% off, and the proceeds will go partly to this cause. Like, think out of the box. Every person who has a business wants more business. So who you're talking to and where you are is relevant. Also, your story matters, right? Like, my friend Julie Solomon has a podcast called the Influencer Podcast, where she teaches people how to be influential and how to be influencers in a real way. For instance, she had a woman who came through her program who had been in the military, and she didn't have a huge following on social media, but she was a woman who had been in the military. And Julie had said to her, you know, you might be the exact demographic that, let's say, Urban Outfitters or Anthropologie wants to get behind you. They might want to put you on a billboard because you're really that person. So you might want to reach out to a brand and say, I'd love to do a partnership with you. I'd love to work with you. I might only have 1,200 followers, but these are my followers. These are our values. And they might say, oh, that's so exciting. We want to get behind a woman who has that going on in her life. And so you sometimes are going to underestimate what you might have that would be valuable to a brand. And what you have to remember is, brands, if they're making toothpaste, if they're making mattresses, they're not seen as being altruistic. They're seen as being helpful in the ways that they can help in creating products. What they don't have going on is something that is making content that makes them look like they care about bigger concepts than just a product. And what we've learned is that content marketing is indeed the kind of marketing that works. It used to be that people could just interrupt your viewing of Friends and say, we have Crest toothpaste and you should buy it. And people would, after enough impressions, they'd remember that and they'd go buy some Crest toothpaste. But that doesn't work anymore. So what brands have started to do is create advertising that is a conversation piece. So you might go into a city and see that there's an installation and there's something you can interact with and touch, and oh, it's promoting a movie on Apple TV. Or you might walk in somewhere and see that there is a licensing deal going on between this brand and this nonprofit. And then you go, oh, that's a cool story to tell. Now I want to go support that brand. So what you can do in creating content, let's say you're a woman in the entrepreneurship space, which is where I'm at. And if I went to Tory Burch or Tamara Mellon or Kendra Scott and said, I'd love to create an 8-piece series sponsored by Kendra Scott, where we talk to women who are aspiring entrepreneurs, and Kendra Scott is sponsoring it, and we help coach these women to start their business, and then they get 5 minutes to meet with you. How good does that make her look? My friend who started Create and Cultivate, she reached out to Citibank early on when she was just a girl starting just this gathering. It wasn't even a podcast. It was a live event with her friends in Palm Springs. And she thought, I'm just going to make a phone call to Citibank. And she looked on LinkedIn for the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, and made a call and said, hi, my name is Jacqueline. I'm putting together an event for women entrepreneurs. Is this something Citibank would like to sponsor? And they said, yes. What did that do for Citibank? It did everything for Citibank, because it made them the title sponsor. Then all the photos of this gathering of women went on their website for a moment, was on their platform for a moment. They got to align themselves with something they didn't even have to build for very little money, right? These brands have money they need to spend that they've already earmarked for marketing and promotion and advertising. So you coming to them saying, this is what I do. This is actually real. It's grassroots. It's organic. They might say, that's awesome. You know, Blue Apron might say, yeah, let's do a series called Food for Thought, where you are eating Blue Apron meals and that's just in the background. Meanwhile, you're interviewing people who are psychologists or people who know a little bit about, you know, a healthy sex life, or like whatever it is that they think might be cool. They're not making that, but you can make that for them. Type a 1 in the chat if that is making some level of sense. Great. Colleen, anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I think just a reminder to everyone is be non-attached, right? We always come back to this, but there's no sense of failure, right? There's no point in not reaching out to any kind of idea or opportunity. And if someone says no, it's like, great, it's no in this moment. And maybe it'll be different at another time. But you want to allow yourself that space and that freedom to make those connection points and try all kinds of different people, all different kinds of brands, all different kinds of angles. And just remember, it doesn't say anything about you when there's a no, or there's like a ghosted response or whatever it happens to be. It's just like, oh, wasn't there, on to the next. Oh, not over there, over here. And you just keep moving, and you don't need to make it mean a big story about it's frustrating, it's not good enough, I'm too small, this can never happen, because then you'll shrink back a bit. And that's not what it's about. It's really just about you realizing like, oh, okay, that wasn't the spot, and it's going to be, I'm going to figure it out. It's going to be over here.
Yes, 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 yes. I think it's like, we somehow think we're waiting for somebody to come along, like Clive Davis walks into a church and sees Whitney Houston and like says, I'm going to put you in pictures, kid, like when really you can wake up every day and you're a phone call away, you're an email away from collaboration, from partnership. And this is really, I think, what Colleen and I didn't realize we're teaching, but we're sort of teaching unwinding codependency. Because if your self-esteem is not attached to somebody's opinion or whether you get a yes or a no, it's all fun. It's like, hey, this is what I'm up to. And then even if they say no, you could say, I was just curious, and you don't owe me anything. You don't know me, but I'd love the feedback. Like, why was that a no? And you might be surprised. They might say, we just did something like this and it didn't work. And you might say, I want to know why it didn't work. Like, what didn't work about it? Or they might say, we've never thought about podcasting, or I don't even listen to podcasts. I didn't even know about podcasts. And you can say, oh, just data, right? Like, this person's just not clued into that, or maybe you educate them, or maybe you don't. It's all feedback. Failure is feedback. It's all failing forward. It's all good. It's all fun. I used to think about this because when I started my songwriting business, my hand would shake before I would pick up the phone and call Leo Burnett Advertising or Ogilvy or Y&R. And I'd be like, hey, you're the music supervisor. You create, you choose music for the ads. They'd say, yeah. I'd say, just calling to check in. I want to know more about your project and see if I could help. I'm a songwriter. I see you guys live in Chicago. Where do you think really is the best pizza? By the way, what are you working on? And my hand would shake. And then I would think, well, why is my hand shaking? On the other side of being willing to be a little bit uncomfortable, I might learn something. Somebody might actually find it useful. And what's the worst that can happen? They might say something abrupt, or they might get off, but that's okay. That's not personal. They don't even know me and they're busy, right? So it's all okay. I feel like, I didn't grow up feeling super duper comfortable. My parents got divorced, and before that they argued a lot. And I just feel like, in a way, the benefit of that was it's okay for me if things are a little bit uncomfortable, because I don't determine my own feeling of safety or well-being based upon there being traffic or somebody having a moment. I'm like, oh, they're having a moment. That's their own vibration. That's their focus. That's their perception. They're bringing it into the space, but it's not about me. I'm not that important. It's not about me all the time. And even when people love me, by the way, that's also not really about me. Somebody might just really get it, and that's cool. But when they get it, that's because it lights up something in them that actually is already there. So that's really about them. And I love that they think it's about me. And I think it's partly about me, but I don't make it mean everything. All right, let's talk about the second thing that you can do to monetize your podcast. You can offer content, extra content. Now, where have we seen this? I'm sure you guys have heard about this already. Patreon. Take a guess in the chat how much money Patreon estimates that they're making a month. How much does Patreon make? Now, Patreon is a place where people who listen to your podcast might say, I like this person. I'm enjoying this. And you might say, for $2 a month, you can be part of my Patreon group. And my Patreon group gets an extra episode, or we meet up on Zoom, or they get something behind the scenes, or I send a 5-minute audio of how my week is going, or right? You've heard of this. So Patreon estimates that they're getting $1.8 million in payouts a month. So let's just do the math. 500 patrons at $10 a month. It's $5,000 a month. Does anyone know Amanda Palmer? Amanda Palmer was on my podcast years ago. Can't believe it's already been years, but there's been years now, 5 years. And she was one of the first people to have a really successful crowdfunding Patreon campaign. And she had a record label. She wound up not having a label anymore. And she was scratching her head like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? She wound up creating this kind of a Patreon situation. And she charged $2 to $3 for being on Patreon. And she was estimating, when I talked to her, I don't know where it's grown to, she was making $50,000 a month from those $2 to $3 patrons, 50 grand a month. Now, you might say, I don't think I'm Amanda Palmer. I don't think that I'm going to do that. What if you made a fraction of that? Like, would it be worth it to you to start a podcast if you made a fraction of that? Like, would it be worth it if you made $1,600 a month from doing something you like to do anyway? Would that feel significant? A lot of you are going to say, yes, it actually would. It's like, yes, again, we make great the enemy of good. We're like, we'll never be 50,000 a month, so forget it. It's like, okay, what if it's 1,800 a month? What if it's $600 a month for doing something you want to do anyway, that's going to grow your business, grow your sense of self, grow all the ways that you can impact the world? It's like, do it. Okay, let's talk about number 3. Colleen, anything you want to say about number 2 before I jump to number 3?
Yeah, I guess just to really echo you guys, like, we really want you to understand everything gets to be easy, right? And everything also gets to evolve. So when you're trying being like, which of these 8 am I supposed to pick? It's like, well, A, it can be a yes and B, it can evolve and you can change your mind as you go. So don't stress around like, which one's the best or which one's this or which one's that. Like, just lean into like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. Maybe I'll start there. And it gets to be that simple.
So number 3 is similar to Patreon, but something that probably is more than just a little extra piece of content, which is what Patreon is really there for. You could create a community of support that's a membership, an actual membership. So what does that mean? If your podcast is about scrapbooking, you could create a membership for people who love to scrapbook, who now come together once a week on a Zoom room, and you give them little assignments, or they all get to go into breakout groups and talk to each other, or they get to, ask their questions, or you do a project together and people pay to be part of a community. I had a friend who was really into DIY crafting. She had a business where she used to do stenciling and murals in people's homes. And she started a membership around DIY crafting in general, and people came into it. And at first she started charging $27 a month. And it was this constant, enjoyable thing where people would pay, meet like-minded people. She'd have different people come in to be speakers to sort of offer like, oh, tonight we're all going to use these things. So come prepared with these 3, tools, and we're going to make fairy lanterns, or and it took off. So you could create a membership around anything. I know somebody who has a podcast all about the 80s, and every time they come together, they talk about the 80s and they do trivia games and they just have a blast. So you could create a podcast. If you have a podcast that's about supporting moms, your membership could be about moms. My friend Emma Isaacs started a membership, and it was $99 a year. And she grew that to $48 million a year. All she did was say, this is the easiest sale. It's $99 a year, which puts you in a group of women entrepreneurs who meet up, we help each other, we network. And every time she went anywhere and met a woman, she would say, you should be in this. It's so good for you. It's so fun to have support. And then from this $99 a year membership, they would create live events, and they would have a whole bunch of people, so they could afford to have Liz Gilbert come and speak, or so-and-so else come and speak. So you could create a membership. The 4th thing, you guys with me so far? The fourth thing is you could offer something that you create. So maybe you personally, you have a physical thing that you make. I just shipped from Los Angeles cupcakes to Colleen on the East Coast. Those are my favorite cupcakes. She's a cupcake connoisseur. She asked me to put in order the ranking of what I thought were the best cupcakes. For whatever reason, she had tried the other two. And I said to her, my favorite cupcakes, I'm not even going to reveal it because I have friends in this space, but I told her what my favorite cupcake was and I had them shipped to her. She loved them. So what do you create? Maybe you have a physical thing that you make, right? Maybe we've had so many people come through. We have a woman in our community who knits these beautiful dolls made of yarn. And she upped the ante because she said, not only am I going to sell a yarn, beautiful handmade doll, but she said, I want to do something where I make inner child dolls. So she started an offer where she had people send in a photo of themselves at 8 years old, and she would knit a doll that represented who they were at 8. So they could have it with them on their desk. So they could, kind of remember this part of them that deserves to be given like less critique. I mean, we beat ourselves up a lot. And there's a part of us that since you're like 8 has always been lovable and worthy of trying things. And you shouldn't be so like insistent that this part of you be perfect, right? So people started to pay, instead of $26 for a doll, that was just a doll. It was like, oh, it's personalized. So she started charging $140 because they were personalized. She made them for you. So with mine, she actually made me one, and it was a striped multicolored shirt with red shoes, which is what I was wearing in the picture I sent her. And it had freckles and brown hair, and it really felt like me. So maybe you make something that's a product. If you paint and you have a podcast about creativity, you could sell your paintings. If you're a jewelry maker and you have a podcast about styling, you could sell jewelry to your listeners. Like, what you really are wanting to get truly is that intimacy is currency. So when you have an audience and you connect with these people over and over and over and over again, they want to buy from you. They want to buy from you. And here's the thing I want you to know about money and about sales. If there's already a market for jewelry or your knitted dolls or candles or somebody who's able to be hired for pet grooming, that means people are going to spend that money anyway. Like, there's already people right now while we're sitting here who sometime today, they're going to add to cart a jacket or add to cart a retreat they want to go on, or add to cart someone to have a culinary date night with them and their fiance. So you're not creating the market. You're just joining the market. You're just like, I'm also somebody, as long as you're spending the money anyway, as long as you're somebody who likes to think about spending money on those kinds of things, you could buy that from me, right? You may as well put your hand up and raise your hand because you care, right? Because you're excited about it. It also might be, we're going to jump to number 6 really quick because I feel like it's really related. It could be a service that you offer, right? Let's say you're a wedding photographer and you have a podcast that has to do with events or weddings or photography in general. And then you offer a service. Now you might say, but Kathy, it's hard for me to think of selling my wedding photography because I'm still really just starting. And I'd like to say, why might you be the best person for them to hire because you're just starting? Like, so often we find the evidence of how we're just so behind the 8 ball. And really, maybe we could ask a different question. Why might you be the best person if you're just starting? If you're a caterer, if you're a photographer, if you're a baby put you to sleep whisperer? Well, usually when people are starting, they're more collaborative, right? If I'm a photographer and I've already done 1,000 weddings, you probably won't even get me. You'll get my assistant, and I'll be doing 6 weddings that day. So you might not have the same level of service. But if I just started, I'm going to go above and beyond to make sure you get the photos you want. And I'm going to be there. And there's a different level of like, what do you want? Oh, you want all your groomsmen to be on a hot air balloon? Fine. I've never done that. Let's try it. Like, there's always a benefit no matter where you are in your journey. So the thing to know is just, I tell people, if you're a realtor, start a podcast. If you teach piano lessons, start a podcast. Why? Because if you have a business and you have something that you sell, it's a service, it's a product, it's something people need or want. If they're going to have other people that could possibly be someone they could pay, if there's competition, which there is for everything, wouldn't you rather have a space where people get to know you? So when they go to Yelp, instead of just looking at names and they're all kind of like, well, this one has good reviews. What if there's a podcast where they're like, oh, I got to know your personality and now I kind of like you. So if I could hire anybody to groom my pet, it's like, I like you. If I could hire anybody, or if I could pay anyone to go on this retreat, I want to go to your retreat because I already know you. I feel like I know you. So if you have a service, depending on your topic, podcasting is it for you. And think about it. We had a girl who did logo design. Okay. She created logos, and initially she was charging like $700 to create a few pieces of collateral that people could use as a logo, as a template for their Instagram and social. She then realized, well, there's already people who want that. Maybe they'd want like a little redo of their website. Well, that's not $750. That's like $7,000, right? And these are businesses. This is a business expense, and people are used to paying that because that's the market. So when she started her podcast, within 3 episodes, she was making $21,000 because 3 people bought this package for them to have their website redone. She didn't need 100 customers. She didn't need 1,000 Patreons. She was charging the appropriate amount to redo a website. And within the first 3 episodes, with only like 19 listeners, she said, if you need someone to redo your website, I have a few spaces, which is true because she can't take on everyone. She had a way for people to reach out to her, and 3 people bought the service. Like, understand, there was a time, I had Howard Schultz on my podcast who created Starbucks. Before he created Starbucks, he worked at FedEx and he did cold calls. Cold calls used to not be picking up a phone. It was like walking in with the product to somebody's store unannounced. That's really hard, but people would do it. Like, here I am, I sell water. What are they called? Like when people buy Arrowhead or whatever the water services are. People would cold call that way. And he used to do that. And he had to. He grew up in public housing, by the way. He grew up at the last stop of the L train in Canarsie, Brooklyn. And his mother said to him, this might be the last stop of the train, but it's not your last stop. And you won't get off here. And promise me, this is something you'll always remember. Like, you don't get off here. This isn't it. And we both cried when he told me that story. And he told me that he knew he would create a legacy because his mother believed in him. And he grew up with Jewish Family Services bringing them food because they lived in a tenement and had nothing. And now he's a billionaire and he's got beautiful kids. He stayed married to the same woman, even though I'm sure he had lots of opportunities now that he's good looking and sweet. In any case, he used to make cold calls. So if you think about it, we have the opportunity now. We didn't have this years ago, where people can get to know you. They can get a sense of who you are. And at the beginning of a podcast, you can say, hey, this is Kathy Heller. And you might not have an ad, but you can say, this podcast is sponsored by my photography business. And right now I'm running a special that if you DM me and you're one of the first 10 people that DM me, I'm going to give you $100 off the service, or I'm going to add a special set of engagement shots. And I also do your wedding. Like, where are you? Show up, make this happen. It doesn't need to be overthought. It doesn't need to be complicated. So I hope that you're starting to see the wheels spinning. Colleen, anything you want to add to that? She's unmuting.
Yeah, there we go. It literally, I just can't echo it enough what Kathy just said. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. And it's like our brain is so used to just assuming it's going to be hard. It's going to take time. Those people are 1,000 steps ahead of where I am. Why would anyone hire me? And none of that's relevant, right? You look at fast food chains. It's like there's McDonald's and there's Burger King and there's Arby's and there's Wendy's and there's Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out. And I don't know, it's not just
very good, Colleen, by the way. That was a very impressive list.
It's not like, I don't even know which one started first, but let's say it was McDonald's because they seem to be around for a long time. It's not like no one else decided to start a chain because McDonald's was there. And look, there's room for all of them. And there's new players that come into the scene. And that's why, like, when we say there's just not competition, there's just people who have a problem or a desire or something they want to experience or have or shift in their world. And why not you? Right? Like, why not? Right? There's someone for everyone in this world. You only need like the tiniest slice of humans to say, yes, I want to transact with you, to be an extraordinary abundance. And there's billions of humans on this planet. So it's really, in the grand scheme of it, it's not even relevant. It's just what excites me. What can I offer? What format that Kathy's talking about today kind of sounds really juicy, and you start there and you go.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Another one that I skipped in the order is important. And I've had experience with this and I highly recommend it. You could offer a course or an ebook. And let me explain how this can be very not complicated and very useful for the world. So for everything that you do, if you were successful in keeping a diet, which is really hard, if you have great kids who you love, who you feel good about themselves because you're a good parent and that's your results, right? If you have a good marriage, if you love cutting hair, for everything you do well, there is a line of people around the block who would love to know how you do that thing. And my first experience with this was in songwriting, because I was just busy doing my thing, never realizing that anyone would think that was so interesting. I was licensing my songs. I was selling music to music, supervisors who took music for TV shows and film and ads and things like that. And then the more that I did it, and, if someone does something once, okay, maybe they got lucky. But if someone does something like over and over and over again, it's like, Kath, I just heard your song on a McDonald's commercial, twice. I just heard your song when I was like walking around Payless and your song was playing. I would watch the American Girl doll movies, which is true. I heard all your music. What the hell are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? So I started to think about it. This is years into having a songwriting business. I started to think like, maybe I should teach this. And my first time teaching it was in my living room. And I told some people that I knew who were songwriters, right? Like, if you ride horses, you know other people who ride horses. So I was a songwriter. I knew other songwriters. And I was like, come to this workshop. And I made up a price. I'm like, it's going to be $200. We're going to spend the day together. We're going to just talk about everything I've done and what seems to be relevant. People loved it. I fit 10 whole people in this old living room of mine. And they were like, can we do this again? And I'm like, okay. And then one of the girls in my class said to me, you should do this online. And I was like, I'm allergic to online. Like, I don't do anything online. I don't have a social media account. I'm not one of those bro marketers who stands in front of a jet and is like, what's up? Let's make money. Like, I'm an artist. I write music. I'm a mom. I'm allergic. And she's like, you're not allergic. You just think that's all it is. But really, it's just a tool for you to talk to other songwriters who don't live in LA and can't come to your living room. There's people who live in the Central Coast of California who can't even come. There's people who just graduated from Berklee School of Music in Boston who cannot come here. So just open up a portal online. And I was like, she's correct. Like, it's just a way to talk to people. And lo and behold, then came a pandemic and everybody talked to each other that way, even like Girl Scout troops. So I got it in 2016. And so I did my first live free workshop, which was how to write music for film and TV. That was my real creative, name of the workshop. And the first thing I did was do it for free, because if you ever bought a car, you test drove it first, right? If you ever went into the cafeteria at the mall, sometimes they give you a sample before you come and buy the sesame chicken or whatever it is, right? So I did one online for free. And I remember I didn't have slideshow. Like, you notice about even this workshop, I don't know how to make slides. I don't know how to do webinars. I never decided to learn that stuff because it doesn't feel like me. So I didn't get behind it. So the good news is that whether you're in this boot camp this week or you decide to take the full 3-month program, I'm not going to teach you those things because I don't care enough to know those things. And I don't think they work. I think intimacy works. So anyway, I did a free workshop online just like this for an hour where I talked about writing music for film and TV. And I dropped as much knowledge as I could and I cared and answered questions. And at the end, at the time it was $1,000, I said, I will spend 6 months with you for $1,000 and I'll be with you every week. And we'll get to know your music. And you know what? I'll even bring in the people who choose music at Nickelodeon and HBO. And people were like, where the hell do I sign up? How do I sign up as fast as possible? I made $147,000 that night because 147 people took it. There was like 84 people who came to that webinar because I had done that living room class about 6 times and people had talked to other people. And then people told their friends because everybody knew struggling songwriters. Like, you have to do it. She's so genuine. And then it was really awesome because what happened? Some songwriters in my program got their first license. I'll never forget John Kleinbell calling me a few months later saying, I just made $52,000 because my song, it was actually Starbucks, is going to be in a Starbucks ad. I'm going to Europe. I'm a grown man with tears streaming down my freaking face. What could I ever do to repay you? And I'm like, no, this is why I do this. Great. I'm so happy that you feel good about it. And you know what happened next, you guys? One of my songwriting students in my online class said, this should be a podcast for anyone who wants to be paid to do what they love, because 90% of what you're teaching is about business in general and helping people get the tools to make relationships and get the business and the clients in the door in an organic way. And 10% about it is really the artistry itself. So I started a podcast called Don't Keep Your Day Job. And do you know something? Before I ever offered a workshop about podcasting or about side hustles, I was making $2 million a year from a class teaching songwriters the business of songwriting. And it was so fun. And then I started a podcast as a side hustle to that. So do you think that you have something to teach? Of course you do. What's the cost of entry? Nothing. Like if you've gotten results for yourself over and over again, someone else wants to know how you've done that. That's it. So I have a friend who's a realtor and I'm like, you're the top grossing realtor in the San Fernando Valley. Why are you not teaching up and coming realtors? Because you know what she does? She does a lot of things right. She comes to your house and makes it impossible for you to hire another realtor because she says, your house needs to be cleaned up. I'm going to actually come here, pack your house, put it in a pod outside, stage your house for free. I have a whole bunch of furniture that I've accumulated for this reason. Then I'm going to take the pictures for you. So you're like, you offer all of that? Like, obviously, because the other realtor came in and said, before we sell it, you need to fix up the house. She's like, yeah, your floor needs to be sanded. This wall needs to be painted. And she does it. I'm like, here's my business. Like, here you go. Because I didn't know how to pack up my house. I didn't know how the first thing is, who would I even call to sand the floor? I have 3 kids. She's like, don't worry, we'll move it all around you. We'll get it in here. We'll get it out. I said, you should be teaching a class. You should be teaching a class on what you just said, because that's how you have this business. She's like, you're right. I said, and then for every house you sell that you only make 3%, because then your broker takes this much. Like, you could be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year teaching people how to be realtors. Why would you not do that? Type a 1 in the chat if you're getting so excited about what I'm saying. Anything, Colleen, that you want to add to that?
I think we just tend to underestimate when it's so native to us in how we show up. Like, we don't recognize sometimes how powerful or meaningful our gifts are. We're like, well, it's just what you do, or it's just what I do, or just, of course, everyone always tells me my cookies are amazing, or whatever it happens to be. And we almost kind of like gloss over it. And there is someone out there who truly, truly, truly wants to benefit from this. And Kathy talks about something a lot, which is that it's not about information. It's also about transformation. So you might say to yourself, but why would someone pay me for a course on how to grow my real estate business when I could just go watch like YouTube videos and someone could just randomly teach me on YouTube. And sure, you can go get that information, but you're going to have to wade through a lot of crap and a lot of not very helpful stuff. You're going to find people you aren't really resonant for, that you don't vibe with. You want to model yourself after someone who is living and embodying what you see yourself creating. And people are always going to pay to transact for a curated container with accountability, with support, with connection, with just someone being there representing what it is that they want to step into.
I mean, it's so true. And we have two more things to get to, but you just said that. And I want to piggyback on what you said and say, that's why we do a whole 3-month program after this boot camp, because I said to you, I'm going to hold up my part of the bargain. You're going to come here for free. And I promise you're going to leave here and you're going to feel like you were really given a lot. And I think you're feeling that way. I haven't seen, I mean, it's amazing. There's thousands of people in this community right now. I haven't seen one negative comment, because I think we know when we're getting real value. And this is what I would be telling you to do. That's why you want to create a podcast that's so good that people say, she's this invested in free content. I can't even imagine what it would be like to hire her or take her class or go to her event. Like, she genuinely wants me to have what I need. But when we do this 3-month program, which we'll tell you a little bit more about today, because so many of you have been DMing me saying, what the hell is in that? I want to know a little more about it. We'll tell you a little bit more about it. It's more information, because of course it's more information, because every time we talk, I've just been doing this for 5 years. So I could probably say a lot more about each of these things in the nitty gritty, but it's the implementation. It's the transformation, right? That's what people want. If my cookbook would do enough for me, then I would already be a great cook, but somebody needs to come to my house and sit beside me and say, no, this is how you fold in the dry ingredients. Doesn't that seem to feel it? Put your hands in there. That's what you want. Now add the water, right? Like it's that level of being with someone. Why does Serena Williams need Rick Macy? Well, she knows how to play tennis. She needs him to take a look and say, widen your stance, look at your elbow, look at your wrist, look at your energy, look at your face right now. This is not going to be a good match because your head is somewhere else, right? Like, when you have mentorship, you get so much more because someone's focused on you and keeping you accountable to be your best. And when we offer, which anybody can join it. In fact, I'm going to tell you at the end, what are all the bonuses you get if you join in the first 24 hours, because we always have fast action bonuses. When you join this, it's a fait accompli. Like, you will have a podcast at the end of 12 weeks. And you will be given the mentorship and the live calls. It's live. Yes, there might be extras because we add so many extras. But even if you didn't look at the videos and you just wanted to show up for my live calls, we're going to be together for 3 months. You're going to be with Colleen also separately. Not just, sometimes people sell things and they're like, so here's what it is. And then they're gone. They're like, they vanish. And then you just get left with this other person who you're like, I like them, but I thought you were part. No, that's how I do it. So it's like, if you take this 3-month program, I'm with you throughout that process. You have those calls with me. You're checking in with me on Zoom, which is, look how much we're interacting now, but we're on Zoom. I'm going to unmute you. We're going to talk. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to be there to make sure that you hold yourself to the promise that you're going to do this show. And then in addition, you're going to have those calls with Colleen. And Colleen's going to give you the homework and say, let's do the homework together. And what got you stumped? And why are you about to hit a dip and bow out of this? Don't you do that? Like, if you're going to learn Mandarin or you're going to learn yoga, there's going to be a learning curve. And that's in part of the process. So if you have someone to bring you through the dip, you'll get to the other side. So it's either you have an insurance policy that you get the transformation itself, or you just get information and you say, let me be honest with myself. Am I going to go back to sleep? Or am I going to take this information and on my own be able to take this into the wilderness? Because just the studies about human behavior show that people we just don't do it on our own. And we get so much further when you have your Jedi, you have your person, you have that accountability, all that stuff. All right, let's talk about a couple more ways you can monetize, and then we'll talk about all bonuses, we'll give away prizes, etc. So another thing you can do to monetize your podcast is you can be an affiliate. You're like, what does that mean? Well, a friend of mine, she has a podcast all about Ayurveda, food and lifestyle. She decided to reach out to a nutritional school that she had taken a year-long class from. And she said, if I talked about you on my podcast, could I make some commission? Because I'm going to talk about you anyway. And they said, what an interesting idea. We never thought about it. But yeah, our program costs what it costs for a year, which is a decent chunk of money. So this is what they told her. For every person you refer, we'll give you $1,000. How many people do you think she referred in the first year of having a podcast? 330. She made $333,000. And she didn't create a school. She didn't open up her doors. Like, she just said, I changed my life. She had a story where she had stopped getting her menstrual cycle. She had all this stuff going on with her health, and she had tried this and tried that and nothing worked. And she wound up getting this nutritional Ayurvedic lifestyle together. Her period came back, her hair grew back. It was an amazing situation. So she felt very strongly that people who are interested in this should go there. And that's all she did, was tell people. And she started a podcast. And over the course of a year, 333 people between her friends, her network, they took this program. So is there something that you love anyway that you can't stop talking about? Are you an avid Peloton rider? Call Peloton. Is there something that you use that you're just like, oh my God, I'm so bad at math. And if it wasn't for FreshBooks or QuickBooks or whatever it is, I would never get my taxes done. And I swear by it. Then it's tell QuickBooks or FreshBooks, I'd like to just make you my one and only person that I affiliate for, or you're one of three. It doesn't matter. I'm riffing with you because we totally leave gold on the table. Is there an artist that you love whose gallery you go to and you're like, I'm obsessed. I saved up enough to have one little painting, but I'd love to be an affiliate for you. Okay, great. Do you know that most people at a certain level, they have already tons of deals like that going on, right? I have an agent. If she does something and she gets me a speaking gig, she makes a piece of it. It's all part of the normal process of things. You might be somebody's best advocate and they just don't know it yet. So what's no harm, no foul? You get paid if you sell it. You don't if you don't. What do they care, right? So you could be an affiliate for something or someone. You could even affiliate someone else's class. You could reach out. If you were a songwriter at the time, you could have said, I don't teach that class anymore because, hey, Kath, I'm obsessed with your songwriting class. If I tell 50 people, would you give me a kickback? And they might say yeah, absolutely. Here's a percentage for telling 50 people. What are you waiting for, man? It's just so easy, right? Okay. And the last thing is events. You could do events. People are so excited now to come back together. I was at a back to school night for my kids, and they said it was the biggest, most attended event in the history because people are so tired of being on Zoom. So what if you had events? So if you, let's say, have a podcast that's about football, could you gather people together for, to talk about the Chargers? We have a person in our community, she loves the Chargers so much. Well, Charger fans like to be around other Charger fans. My stepmom, she loves the Pittsburgh Steelers. Anyone who loves the Steelers, she could go toe to toe with you and talk about all the stats. She'd love to swing that terrible towel and be together with you. And what's your podcast about? If you have a podcast about mindfulness and well-being, could you create a meditation retreat? You don't even have to be the one doing the meditation. You could hire a facilitator to come in and lead the meditation, but you gather people together and maybe they spend $500 for a 2-day event, or it's $97 and it's a 4-hour event, or it's $3,000 and it's 10 women and you find an Airbnb and you pre-sell it and you tell people we're going to San Diego. You don't even have to buy the Airbnb because you can look and see that there's 20 that are available in the cliffs that you want to be in La Jolla. You just know they're there. You pick the dates, you put it out and you say, I'm doing a retreat for 15 women. Here's what it costs. And then if you pre-sell it and you have at least 8 women sign up, you call a meditation teacher down there, you call a yoga teacher down there, and you back your way into an event. Type a 1 in the chat if this is starting to feel like it makes a lot of sense. So today we're going to give you, we still have more to go, but we're going to give you more homework today, and we're going to come back with more prizes. And I want to tell you something very fun and very exciting. Before we started this week's boot camp, I told all of you, go to kathyheller.com/win. And if you subscribe and review the podcast, we're going to choose 3 of you and give you this bundle, which is Beats headphones, a Yeti microphone, and a Marc Jacobs tote, just because I thought that was like so cute for you to like have to be professional and serious about it. But we're going to do it again. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my podcast and left a review, if you go ahead and do that tomorrow, we are going to give you Marc Jacobs tote, headphones, and the microphone. We're going to pick 3 of you. So what you're going to do is you're going to subscribe and review, do your homework, and then you're going to do all that. Plus, we're going to add a $50 Starbucks card, because it's just never a bad time to have something ice cold coffee, iced tea. Like everybody seems to light up when something walks in the door and there's a drink with the clinkily ice. So we're going to give you that as well. So that's what's happening. And on the homework for today, you're going to be answering questions like, what are the 8 ways to monetize your podcast that you feel drawn to most? Number 2, how much would you love to make from your podcast at the end of every month? Number 3, what income from podcasts, what would the income from a podcast allow you to do? And how would that change your life? So for me, you can now imagine I do all of those things. So I have a podcast, right? So there's brand deals. From the podcast, I've now got 2 book deals. I got my first book deal with Macmillan. After 3 episodes, they called and said, this is a great topic. This should be a book. And I got a check to write a book. I just got my second book deal, which was 3 times as much as I made my first book deal with Simon & Schuster. That book comes out next August 22nd. So there's podcasts, there's sponsorships, there's the book deals, there's courses, right? We teach a course now in podcasting, but because my podcast is called Don't Keep Your Day Job, we also teach people how to ditch their day job and in 90 days, validate something, get proof of concept, and quit their job, which is amazing. And hold on to your seats, because I'm going to tell you something really exciting about that. We've helped thousands of people quit their job and replace their income times many, 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 many times. So I'm going to tell you something about that in a second. So we have courses, right? The brand deals. We do live events. I do intimate events, retreats at my home for 18 women. We also do big events for 100 people, right? I told you I'm doing an event with Mel Robbins. Buckle up, hold on to your seats. I'm going to tell you about that in a second. We're also doing a big event with Andy Grammer and Rachel Platten at the end of October, and Amy Purdy and Candace Nelson, who created Sprinkles Cupcakes. That'll be an even bigger event. Hold on to your seats. I'm going to tell you something about that in a second. So events, courses, books, there's pretty much all of those things. Oh, and by the way, I write music. What wound up happening is I use a song of mine at the beginning and end of every episode. What do you think happened? More people heard my music because of this content. So I write songs. Sometimes Coca-Cola will send me a note saying, would you write a song for our Christmas campaign? If any of you have little kids and you watch Llama Llama on Netflix, that's me singing that theme song. I wrote and sang that theme song. So I'm still able to create things that I make from the podcast. And sometimes I affiliate for people if somebody has an event or some product that I just love. Sometimes instead of it being a brand ad spend, it's an affiliate situation, right? And obviously, we also have coaching packages that we do. So I have a really high level mastermind that we have 45 women in. And we also have a membership as well, which is 1 call a month. And as crazy as this sounds, you guys, I have 3 kids, 3. I drive them to school and pick them up. I put them to bed. I hang out with them. I have a Girl Scout meeting tonight. I don't have that much I have to do because the podcast is where all the intimacy, all the leads get generated, all the clients. It's just a place to make deposits with people. For human beings, it's about the EQ. So the more you show up, the more you put into intimacy, Your business takes care of itself. You don't have to market. You don't have to hustle. I don't have to make cold calls. The business comes to me because I show up on that podcast, and next thing I know, people show up, and I'll say things like, hey, this is Kathy Heller. Today's episode, I want to let you know I'm doing an event sold out. Hey guys, I want to let you know I'll be teaching a class on podcasting. And I know there's probably going to be like 12,000 people who join the launch and boot camp, but you know how I roll. So I don't take all 12,000 people in my class. So it's going to be first come, first serve, which is true. So we won't even take half of you in the class, right? Because we don't do classes that way. We show up live, we have homework, we put you in Zoom rooms. We don't have 12,000 people on Zoom. So they fill up really fast. Okay. So speaking of filling up really fast, I want you to know that this Facebook group will close next Wednesday. We are going to have an after party tomorrow and the next day. And the enrollment for my Your Turn to Podcast course will close next Wednesday. I want you to know a little bit about it. I feel morally obligated to tell you about it because I know what it's like in there. Because I've watched people actually build empires and grow as leaders and create income and do good in the world and raise their voice. I know what goes on in there, and I know the friendships people make, and I know the light bulbs that turn on, and I know the way women support each other and go on each other's shows and how quickly success happens. So I feel morally obligated that I'm going to literally hold up a neon sign and say, don't walk, but run to this program, because it is going to make damn sure that this podcast of yours does come out in January, and that you spend the rest of the year not just kind of passing time, but showing up for your potential. And we will be there, like Poppy says in Trolls, no one left behind, no troll left behind. Like, we will be watching you. You will have that accountability. You will show up. We will be live. We will go through the step-by-step process of making your artwork, putting up your show, all of the ways you're going to grow it and market it and then monetize it. And we will keep you in a container where you will keep coming back to have the mentorship and grow your show. And now some people will say, I can't afford to take a class. And my comment back is usually, can you afford to not do this? If you're not going to do this, right? And I just told you that just from one revenue stream, I was making $2 million a year from songwriting classes, before you even add the money I make from making the songs, before you even add the money I make from advertisers. What will be your plan to create a scalable income if it's not going to be this? Now, the class, the way that we design the class is that there's a payment plan of the class to make it really accessible. It's $297 a month. And I'm going to tell you, from looking at the data on the way American people spend money, we always go over budget. So that $297, if you're being honest, you will spend it anyway. You'll wind up having drinks with a friend on this Thursday night. You'll wind up buying 3 t-shirts that you don't need. You'll use this unlimited data plan to waste your time and search the internet instead of living your own life. And you know it. Sometimes we just need a really good kick in the ass from someone who loves us enough to tell us to get off the bench and get in the game. So if you want to join this program, it's $297 a month for you to join this program, and you're going to change your freaking life. You can do it that way, or you can pay for it up front for $29.97. That's less than $3,000, and it's not theoretical. It's amazing that people will pay whatever they pay for college, which is reading books and theory, versus saying, I'm going to work with somebody who has a top 20 podcast right now, who's willing to take the time to help me to do the same. It's not theoretical, it's actionable, it's actual, and it's not recorded videos. We're going to give you a lot of extra stuff. So there will be video content, but the bulk of the class, if you never watched that video, if you never looked at it, the class is going to happen in real time when you show up for my call, when you show up for Colleen's call. And you also get my producer, Emma, for all the tech, for all the questions, she's been with me since episode 1. Every time you want someone to help show you exactly how you're going to get better quality sound or edit this together, you get an equal amount of calls with all of us throughout this 3-month period. Plus, for those of you who sign up in the next 24 hours, you're going to get a string of bonuses. And one of them is a class on how to ditch your day job and replace your income, which is really, as much as you think I'm pretty good at podcasting, that's my real jam. So in the next 24 hours, if you think you're going to sign up anyway, because you're feeling like, how could I not do this now? I really want to do this with her. Then I would sign up in the next 24 hours. Now I'm going to tell you this also. I am not everybody's person. It's impossible. Some people don't like Italian food. They don't like sushi, but they do like Indian food. I'm not everybody's person. I might not be your person. There might be somebody else who's better equipped to help you leave your day job and start a podcast. There's a lot of people who are good at that. So if I'm not your person, I'd like you right now to make a promise to yourself that you are going to capitalize the next time the person is your person, and you're going to say, I'm doing this. Because I've been in this game long enough to know when I was a songwriter at year 10 and I was making the money I was making, having success as a songwriter, I was on a panel with my co-writer, Kyler England at the time. And somebody asked us, why do we think we have a career? And she said, because we're still here. We're still songwriters. And I will never forget that, because so many times people have a dream and they give up on it and it doesn't happen. And so I'm saying to you, don't go back to sleep. You have heard enough this week to light something inside of you, something that's great. We came to this world to live into our greatness, right? You want mastery. You want to have moments where you feel like you are really living into your potential. And that's what's really causing you. You think it's your marriage and you think it's your kids and you think it's where you live. It's not, it's you. You want to be firing on all cylinders. So if I'm not your person and I'm not for all of you, you should find that program. I also want to say, we don't take everybody who's in this program. So we're going to cap the program when we cap the program, because we get to know everybody in this program. So if you're thinking you want to sign up, but you might wait until next Wednesday when we close, you might not want to, because there's not a spot for the 12,000 people that join this launch. There's not a spot for 6,000. There's not a spot for 3,000. You get where I'm going. We're going to take a small portion of the people that are in this room. We don't do things the way other people do them. What I like to do when I look at a space is when they zig, we zag. So if you look at online classes and you're like, online classes, yeah, they're expensive because no one shows up, no one completes them. That's why we created something where you would want to show up, because you would want to be in the room, held accountable with the community by your side, because that's really what we need. And I'll tell you that all of the calls that we do, when they're live, they will be recorded live, and then you could watch them later that evening. And I'm telling you, I feel so confident in what I bring and what Colleen brings and what Emma brings, that even if you showed up for a third of the live calls, you're going to feel so changed by this. Plus, you have lifetime access to this content. So if you want to go back and look at it again and again and again, you have it. Another bonus, which is very exciting, is that my very good friend Mel Robbins and I are doing a live event in Los Angeles on the 10th of October. And it's a few hours of us sitting together, having a fireside chat Q&A about her new podcast, which I pushed her to start, which comes out October 6th. If you want to get a free ticket to that, when you sign up in the next 24 hours, you'll get a free ticket, and it'll be a VIP ticket. So the first few rows, it'll be your spot. That's also there for you. In addition, the other thing you get as a bonus by signing up in the next 24 hours is sessions that we've done with some of my millionaire, very down-to-earth friends who have a lot of wisdom, because success does leave clues. So you get sessions from Jerisha Hawk, who's brilliant, who talks about where she came from and what she's built in a way that anybody, it'll light a fire under you. Martha Beck, who happens to be Oprah's actual coach, who had so much courage to leave her marriage when she decided to come out of the closet, which was so not easy. And she has a son with Down syndrome, and she is so magical, and she has a Harvard doctorate, and she's just got so much to say about being in your integrity and your alignment. You're going to get a class from my friend Candace Nelson, who I mentioned, who created Sprinkles Cupcakes from starting in her kitchen, getting cupcakes together, to growing an empire that she sold during a pandemic for hundreds of millions of dollars. You're going to get those sessions as well if you sign up in the next 24 hours. So the gold package is $297 a month, or you can pay up front and it's less than a college class. There are, though, 18 spaces, only 18, for those of you who want to do the platinum package. The platinum package includes the class plus a retreat in my home, in my living room, with a private chef and 3 days of one-on-one coaching, plus meditation and breath work and all of those things. In addition, there's several other programs that come with that package, but there's only 18 spots for that. So Colleen, anything else? And then we're going to talk about the winners of yesterday's homework.
Yeah, I just really want you guys to know that you're here for a reason and you came to this experience this week because you know there's a calling in you, right? There's a calling in you that you want to show up in this way, that you want to share your voice more in the world, bigger in the world. You just want to come home, right, to who you are and be that stand so that others have the permission to let themselves see that's possible for them too. And when you join us in this container, it's like the fun and the joy of this week is only amplified and extended, right? So it's like 3 months. Can you imagine where you would be, who you would be, how you would be showing up, the impact you can be making by that kind of transformation when you get to be held in this space where there's so much joy. And the humans that Kathy called into her world, you can probably feel it already from being in the Facebook group, but no, it's a thing. And all the students will all say it, right? You will make friends for life that you just wouldn't otherwise have made, that are just in your corner and they love you and they see you and they support you and you do the same for you. And I don't think there's anyone that comes out the other side of these containers that isn't changed and isn't just so powerfully stepping in more to like your purpose and that sense of what you know you're here to do in this life.
I love that you said that. I think that is really true. I think that water seeks its own level. And I think there are people who would be attracted to something that was maybe glossier in a way or more about online marketing in a way. And I think the people who come through whatever your community is that's generated by your own vibration, they tend to be like you. And so we do tend to find a lot of people in the community, they all share the same thing. They have a really big heart. They come from a lot of integrity and they want to call people up in a way. They want to be leaders. They want to create communities. And I will tell you, as we're talking today about how you can monetize your podcast, I want to tell you something about your own business. And it relates to mine too, but I want you to hear this. So often we don't realize the baggage we carry. The reason we're not making money is because your nervous system won't let you do something that you don't think is safe. And a lot of times, but without taking a better look at it, we have a lot of negative association with money. And so people feel like if they monetize something, they're doing something wrong. If you're charging someone for a service or for content, you might have a voice in your head saying, but content is always free. Why am I charging? Or services, I mean, who are they to pay me to be a photographer? And like I said before, they're going to pay someone anyway. But more than that, when people pay for things, they get a charge out of being charged, right? When I went for my birthday, I bought my first Cartier bracelet just this year. And I thought, I'm going to walk in there and buy this for myself. I felt so tall that I gave that to myself. When was the last time you bought a pair of shoes and you were happy it wasn't a $16 sales shoe because you wanted to spend that money on yourself? Because when you spend that money on yourself, you told yourself a story about what you were worth to yourself. There are people who have pets and they want to buy the dog food that's more expensive and organic. And it's not because they can't look at the label and see that the generic one is similar. They want to feel that their pet is somebody who they spend money on. And if you think about it, in our culture across the world nowadays, people love to buy things. It makes them feel good to say, I bought myself a jacket today. I was having a hard day. I bought myself, or you know what? I'm going to this retreat. I'm going to go see Deepak Chopra. He's going to be in the Terranea. I know that's what I need to do. Just by buying that, that made me feel like I focused some energy on myself. So why are you robbing people of that? Seriously, like people love to do that. And when Deepak Chopra was on my show, we talked about his new book, which is called Abundance. That's what his new book is about. And he's a guy who grew up in India, where there's a lot of poverty. And so you would think, how dare he come across and write a book on abundance? Doesn't he know that some people live in poverty? His perspective is that the world is abundant. And he said to me, you know, Kathy, every acorn is the promise of thousands of forests. The world was made in abundance, but sometimes we as people, we have this soul, we have a higher consciousness, and then we have an ego. And our ego seems to think that the more I have, the less you'll have. But that's not true. Because if you think of it, if I plant a cherry tree, that cherry tree gives birth to more cherry trees. If I paint my house and the value of my house goes up, what did I just do for my neighbor's house? I made my neighbor's house, the value of their house just went up. If I have money, and Barbara Corcoran, who's a billionaire, said to me, money is meant to be spent. Money is like blood in the body. The word currency comes from the word current. It's about continuing to make it go around. Even if I have money, do I really have it? No, it's in a bank account. What's it doing in the bank right now? It's funding people's loans. It's writing people's mortgages. Your money is not yours. You don't hide all your money under your mattress and hold it. Every time you make $1, you give half to the government at a certain point, but you have money that you're spending on Main Street for this person's bead store. You're keeping this proprietor in business. You're hiring someone for your team. Money is meant to go around. If you go to a charity event, if you go to a hospital, if you go to see some cause, you'll see somebody's name on the bottom of the building of the hospital, on the bottom of this theater. Somebody was able to donate money into that. That's their legacy. Money is a good thing for you to call up abundance in people. So when people say to me, I can't afford it, I say, you are hooked into a whole paradigm where you don't see that money is actually right here available. We had a guy in my music class back in the day, Nick Phelps, who's an amazing human being. And he's an amazing dad, and he's an amazing husband. He's also a chaplain in a hospital. You know the kind of person that is, somebody who would choose to be a chaplain in a hospital. Okay. And he's African-American, he has 4 kids. And he said to me when he took my free workshop that there was something about me, spoke to his soul. And he went to church that Sunday, and he wasn't going to sign up for the class because he said, I cannot afford it. And as he sat in church, he thought, what if I could ask a question about how I could afford it? Because I know somehow, some way I need this person. He took my class and he wound up getting a song placed in Nordstrom ad, which covered what he paid for the class. But what happened is bigger than that. He said, you know how I decided to pay for your class? I decided that once a week I was going to pick up Instacart for people. And I took my 4 kids, because I couldn't afford childcare, put them in the back of my van, and we delivered groceries for Instacart. And doing that once a week helped me pay for your class. He said, my kids have never forgotten that. Even now that I'm making money with music, even now, he even teaches his own hip hop music class on top of the music he's producing and writing. He's doing so well. He goes, my kids don't forget that daddy cares enough about his dream that he's going to find a way. And we live in a time where on the other side of your phone, we had a woman for one of our side hustle classes who said, I was going to not do it because I couldn't afford it because I'm a single parent and I have a 2-year-old and I have a job. And then she said, I realized there are a few days in the week where I'm home with my kid. I decided to reach out to 3 other moms and ask them if I could watch their kid and get paid for that while I'm with my 2-year-old. So she wound up getting paid while she was home, and her daughter had playmates, and it paid for the class, but more than paid for the class, it got her to start her side hustle, which she started her side hustle. And it's amazing what she's now done with this side hustle. So when we say you can't afford something, you need to look again. You need to change the way you think about money, and you need to change the way you think about what's available, because on the other side of someone giving you money is you coming up with something that somebody needs or wants. And the more we look at the gifts and our resourcefulness, we can actually help people, and we can get paid today to do amazing things. And also, the more that we don't think money is the root of all evil, and we realize that money is just a tool. It's like Wi-Fi. Like, who would say, if you have a ton of Wi-Fi, you're going to be evil? It's like, well, some people use unlimited Wi-Fi and they do horrible things with it, but some people don't. Some people do great things with Wi-Fi. There are people who have no money who are really kind. And there are people who have a lot of money who are really kind. There are people who have a lot of money who are jerks. There's people who have no money who are jerks. Money is not the thing. It's neutral. It's the person. The Talmud says money is like rain falling in a garden. If the rain falls on weeds, the weeds grow. If the rain falls on roses, they grow too. It's what are you inherently? The money will bring it out more. So if you're inherently a good person, having money will make you a better person. whatever you have, you'll share it. If you're inherently off the track and not on a track with integrity, your money will make you worse. But money is awesome, just like oxygen is awesome, just like Wi-Fi is awesome. They're tools, they're resources. And we need to show up and take in all these resources so that we can be a leader, so that we can grow in this world and help other people who maybe don't have even the option because they don't have even Wi-Fi, or they don't have a car, or they don't have running clean water. So they have to worry about that all day long. They can't even quite figure out how they would start a podcast or start a bit, right? Like, we're sitting on so much opportunity. And then instead of utilizing it, we're like, I just can't. So we turn off our creativity, right? Your greatest resource is your creativity. So in this class, you will have a container to get this done. Now, the exciting news is we don't end today. We're coming back for 2 more days. And Colleen, do you want to tell them the link in case they want to? So here's the fun part about tomorrow and the next day. We're going to stream it here at the same time, so you could watch it here, or you could be with us on Zoom and we can have an experience where we can answer questions and coach you on your podcast. We can listen to your title ideas. We can listen to what you want to ask about formatting or anything. We have 2 more days of this. Type a 1 in the chat if you're excited about it. So 2 more days of this, we're going to come back and do that. We'll also announce the winners of the homework. And remember, go ahead, kathyheller.com/win, and subscribe and review the podcast, because by doing that, you get put into this raffle that you win that whole bundle plus the $50 gift card for the Starbucks. And remember, I said, if you come to all of the lives that we do this week, not only will you hopefully learn a lot of things, but you're going to be then eligible. You'll be in the raffle. 2 of you are going to win at the end of the week an Apple Watch, which is just really fun and cool. So we're going to now announce the winners. If you want to join our program in the next 24 hours, you get all those other bonuses. Go to kathyheller.com/join. The first 100 people will get that ticket to the Mel Robbins, the VIP ticket, and everything else will come to everyone who joins the next 24 hours. If you're going to join, or if you already went to kathyheller.com and joined, tell us in the chat so we can celebrate you right now. And Colleen, while they're doing that, why don't you go ahead and announce the winners of the homework from yesterday?
Yes, for sure. So our day 2 winners are Tamala Netherton, Leanne Cooper Elliott, and Melinda Diorio. So congratulations to all 3 of you. You can send a email off to hello@kathyheller.com. And tomorrow, like Kathy said, you're going to be able to have a choice whether you want to watch here in the Facebook group again, or you want to like hop in the back end of the Zoom room with us. And so if you want to come into Zoom, you just go to kathyheller.com/party. That is your quick link. We'll send it out in the email notices as well, so that you'll have reference to that. But you have your choice of where you want to come hang with us.
And the other thing that'll be fun about the next 2 days is that we're really going to leave time for Q&A. And so sometimes when you go to a workshop, you're like, this was so great, but I really wish you would have added this, or I'm really still curious about these 3 things. Like, great, tomorrow and the next day, that's your time. Ask any of those questions. We'll get to as many of them as we can. All right. Oh, someone's already like, I want to jump on.
Here for the party. Yeah.
It's going to be tomorrow. Okay. So we love you guys. We're going to put up homework in a little bit. Go ahead and do it. I can't wait to celebrate you guys who are coming in to your Turn to Podcast. We're going to have so much fun. It's going to be an amazing few months. We cannot wait to spend this time with you and to see you putting these beautiful podcasts into the world come January. You're going to be all ready to go. So we'll be back tomorrow. And thank you for today. Thank you, Colleen. Great job. Great job, everybody.